Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and a very special welcome to I've got to call him Coach Dan, Coach Dan Gordon, all the way from, he's based in Los Angeles, California, but right now he is in Missouri. And,
yes.
Is that right? Yep, got that right. And welcome to the podcast. We're going to talk about selling like a badass, not like a douche. So we're going to talk about authentic
100%
selling.
right.
So Coach Dan, welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast.
Darren, I am so unbelievably thrilled to be here. I love your country. I love your countrymen, love your countrywomen. It's just, you guys are just so authentic, right? You're down to earth. I mean, you're very, very clear about what you like and what you don't like. And these are the people I love working with.
So there's no douchiness with Australians, although I haven't
No, far from it.
There are a few around, just so you know, Coach Dan. There are a few around, but they tend to. There's not many of them. They just tend to move around a little bit. So that's the thing. So we're gonna delve into authentic selling and no douchebag selling today. Yeah. Before we do, love to get a little bit of background for the benefit of the listeners on your background and what led you, because I know you've been in the coaching game for about 24. Well, it's 2000, right? 24 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
What led you to doing that? So love to delve into a little bit of the background, and because I talk to a lot of sales people, sales leaders that fell into sales. I'm
right.
Similar to that, but what was it that led you to do what you do today?
I had a really bad experience, right? About 8 years ago. And I lost everything. I had a marketing company and I lost everything. And in a month, I lost over $100,000. And I was literally on the floor in snot and tears going, what am I going to do now? I had been in the personal development world for about a decade. I flew around the country and in Europe teaching these intensive 3-day seminars. And what I loved about that, Darren, was turning the lights back on in people's eyes. And I found I really had an unusual ability to do that, to bring people to a level of consciousness where they realized that their life was not only their responsibility, but their crafting. Like they could have any life that they wanted. And it took more than just making a stupid dream board. And right now, you who are listening, if you're thinking about making a dream board, don't waste your time. It's moronic. Actually get out there and do something. Okay. That's one of our exports. That's one of our worst exports in this country, dream boards.
Sometimes referred to in Australia as the vision board.
Oh my God. Stop, please. But here's the thing. When you recognize that the only thing that's stopping you is a system of beliefs created by your ego to keep you safe. I'm going to say that again. It's a little complicated. What stops you is a system of beliefs created by your ego to keep you safe. Right? So this is the ego's job, Darren. Like if I say to you, you can either go to a party where you're going to end up feeling very embarrassed by what you say, or you can go to a party where people think you're great. Which party do you think you're going to go to?
Oh, it's a pretty obvious one. It won't be the one that people would think I'm a douchebag.
For me, that's about every party. But the point is that generally speaking, you're going to want to go to the party where everybody thinks that you're great. Like it feels good. But which party do you think you'll learn more about yourself? Right?
It won't be that one.
Right. It's a party where you're going to be embarrassed. Right? Things are going to churn and happen, right? Our ego is designed to move us in the direction of what feels good and definitely move us away from the things that feel bad.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, everything that you need to learn to become a greater version of yourself exists in feeling bad. Challenges and difficulty. And when I was on the floor in snot and tears that day, I knew that I was beginning with the greatest day of my life. I knew that even though it felt terrible, that something I had done had put me there, choices that I made had put me there for a greater purpose.
Mm,
And the thing that I love about sales, Darren, is that anything that you struggle with in business, life, or relationships, anything that you struggle with in business, life, or relationships shows up in a sales interaction.
mm,
What you think about yourself, what you believe that you're capable of, your value, your product's value, how you relate to other people,
mm.
how what other people say affects you. All of it comes rushing at you in a sales interaction. And I realized this um, while I was teaching personal development. And I thought, man, if I ever launch a personal development organization, it's going to be sales based
Hmm.
because I'm taking a weekend and just getting people to open up a little bit. If I send people out to sell, teach them how to sell, all of this is going to happen much sooner.
Yeah.
And for me, it's important that people get it sooner than later. So you asked about my background, essentially why I'm in this. I'm in this because I know when people take responsibility for the things that they create, they feel better, they feel more empowered, they make more money. More money means, generally speaking, less stress in their relationships. Less
Yeah.
stress means happier homes, happier children, children who don't go out and shoot up schools,
Yeah.
people that stop thinking like, oh, I should attack this building because I don't like the government. And instead saying, hey, I can make a change in the world to make it better for me and the people that I love. And the pond ripples of that means that other people benefit too. When you reduce the sense of victimhood and increase responsibility, everything gets better. And unfortunately, right now, we're headed in the opposite direction. I'm only here to save the world, Darren. That's it. That's all that I want. It's a very small ask. One thing.
Well, it is, but you've touched on a number of key points there, and one of the things that really resonated with me is the key word responsibility.
Yes.
And in the work that I do with leaders, and particularly sales leaders and their teams, I'll always talk
Hmm.
to them about we have to take responsibility, certainly as leaders, for everything that
Yes.
happens, irrespective of whether we're at fault or not. Because at least when we take responsibility for stuff that's happening in our environment, we have a higher level of control over the choices we now make to do
Yes.
something next. So I'm really curious when you were going through that and you sort of alluded to the fact that it was a realization that it was your greatest day. And I
Yes.
get that from a perspective of it was almost like a platform that you probably couldn't go any lower than where you're at that particular point. So the only
It would
way
have
is
been
up.
hard. Yeah.
Yeah. And it reminds me of what Les Brown used to always say, if you get knocked down on your back so you can look up. If you can look up, you can get up. If you can get up, you can get going. So get going.
Yeah.
But I'm
He's an
really
amazing
curious.
man. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
incredible. I'm curious though, Coach Dan, when you were in that particular moment and you
Hmm.
had that realization, because what you're talking about there is the choices over the thinking and therefore the decisions you make in that moment. How hard was it though to do that when it would have been easy to either blame circumstances, blame the
Yeah.
economy, blame the government, blame others, because this is what a lot of people find relatively easy to do because it's almost like an avoidance of responsibility, or they don't want to
Hmm.
step into the realization
Yeah.
that they must take
Yeah.
responsibility.
Right. And it's all well said. Let me answer that in this way. In our stories, right? Our stories. Now, we don't think of them as stories. We just think of them as facts, right?
Mm,
But in our stories, and when I was teaching personal development, there was a lot of people that came in whose partner cheated on them, right? And it was, oh man, my wife cheated on me. I've been, making a lot of money, been working hard while I've been right. So, right, there's no sense of responsibility there. And now in our stories, we are either what? We are either the victim or the hero.
mm,
We never cast ourselves as a villain of our story. And in my personal development work, that's what I help people do. I help people recognize, like, oh my God, like while I was out working and doing these things and doing these things, I was completely shut off emotionally. I pushed my wife into the arms of another man. I am a nightmare,
mm,
right? I'm the villain of the story.
yeah.
Like the fact that she stayed with me this long is a miracle.
Mm,
That's what I transferred there. So in my story, and the way that I tell it in the beginning before I shift it, people are really into it because here's what I did. I made a huge push in my marketing company. I put every dollar into it, right? I'm going to grow this thing or it's going to crash. And one of the people that I hired turned out to be a pathological liar, right? So we're closing business left and right and sideways, which a pathological liar can do.
Yep.
Because if you have no intention of following through on any of your promises, and you don't have that thing that most humans have that say, wow, I shouldn't be lying right now. If you don't have that, you can be a hell of a salesperson.
Yeah.
So he was. And when
Yeah.
I realized what had happened, I fired the guy, went back to all of these clients. I said, look, this thing that we said that we could do for $10,000 is going to be like $30,000 or $40,000. Like, oh, that's nice. You're fired. And I
Yeah.
want all of my money back, which I gave them.
Yep.
So now that story right there, if I ended the story there, it'd be pretty easy to connect with me and go, wow, you got taken advantage of, Dan. That guy's a jerk.
Mm.
But here's the truth, right?
Mm.
When I decided that I had to look at myself as the villain of my story, not the victim, I hired this guy for one reason.
Yeah.
I hate marketing. I'm just really good at it. It was never supposed to be a career. I hated every day. I didn't like it. I hired this guy subconsciously to destroy the business because I didn't have the courage to leave it. I'm the
Wow.
villain. I'm the villain, not him. And it was on the floor that day when I said, I must have created this for a reason. And actually, I called a friend. And this is true of everything. If you're suffering, ask for help.
Yeah.
Like nothing great happens alone. You can't try to create anything alone. Called a friend and she goes, what do you want to do? You want to recreate the marketing company? No, I hate this. She goes, what do you want to do? I said, I want to do what I know I'm supposed to do, what I was doing in personal development. I just want to do it for business people. And she
Yeah.
said, great, do that. Then my second story came. Who's going to hire a business coach who just failed at business at a tune of $100,000? But what happened, Darren? 8 months later, I walk out on stage in Dallas, Texas, being paid $10,000 for my very first speaking gig.
Yeah.
Because what I did between the floor and the stage was massive transformation. I took the whiteboard of Dan Gordon and erased it and created Coach Dan Gordon from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
But it took intense looking at how I created everything. And we were talking, right? We were talking about taking responsibility. That's
Yeah.
what responsibility is.
Yeah.
Surrendering your story, being the villain of the story instead of the victim or the hero, and moving forward that way. It's the only way that it works.
And it's a really interesting perspective because when you look at most people, whether that be entrepreneurs or even people in corporate, in a position
Mm-hmm.
of responsibility or profile, they want to always paint a rosy picture. Just look at social media as a classic example,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Right.
It's very rare that you see somebody posting their own authentic self, and you see all the filters on Instagram, and there's all these
Yeah.
influencers that I'm only going to show you the good side. What was it that was there something that drove that? I know you had the challenge and you realized you were the victim, the villain, sorry, and wanted to
Mm-hmm.
take responsibility. Was there a key element to that led you on that journey of 10 months later being on that stage as Coach Dan that led to being an authentic person, right? So how hard was it? I guess what I'm saying is how hard
Yeah.
was it for you to I guess understand that you were responsible for that. You
Yeah.
push the pathological liar into the organization to let's just say
Right.
destroy the business, right? Because
Thank
maybe it was
you. Thank you.
destiny.
Yeah.
Um, how difficult was that for you though? How difficult was it for you to show your true self? And when you did, what did you learn?
I learned what everybody learns in that space, which is I am 1,000 times more powerful than I ever imagined. Right? When you are truly set free from the belief that circumstances have created your situation, you instantly become a much more powerful being.
Mm.
My heroes, Gandhi, Dr. King, Mother Teresa, um, Richard Branson, these are people who didn't blame circumstances and also consistently broke rapport.
Mm.
So you're asking what it takes. It takes breaking a lot of rapport. In other words, people are not going to like you
Yeah.
because when you're free, it makes people who are imprisoned in their own mind, it makes them realize how not free they are. And
Mm.
they come after you with everything.
Yeah.
And so I started doing things and living in a way that most people won't do because they're afraid of being rude. They're afraid of uh, operating in a way that people would judge them harshly. And these are all elements of breaking rapport.
Yeah.
You know, when there's this story of Mother Teresa she was going to this little village in Calcutta, and so they knew that she was coming, so they paid all this money to refurbish the church, and the local carver he carved these oak pews, and she comes in and she walks into the church and she goes, rip those pews out, sell them, and give them money to the poor. Now, how do you think that oak carver felt? Right? What she didn't say was, wow, I really appreciate this. And I got this idea and I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I think if we, right? Because why? She didn't waste her time. She's on a mission, right? When you are mission focused, Darren, when you're mission focused, it gives you the responsibility, not just the opportunity, but the responsibility to move that mission forward. My mission is to free people of their self imposed limitations. And
Mm.
because I am connected to that mission, I am free to speak my mind and to speak the truth that
Mm.
many people don't want to hear. So what it took was to step into fire after fire after fire. And I kept challenging myself. I kept challenging myself to live a kind of life in a kind of way that broke some people, it pushed some people away, but drew like a magnet the people that
Yeah.
I wanted to be around.
Yeah. And it's a really, really important lesson there because you think, and I'll say it's a generalization, I know, but most people want to belong to something and feel as if
Yeah.
they belong to something. They want to be liked, right? It's just one of their core needs. We want to be loved. We want to be liked.
Yeah.
But to go through that process, you're going to push some people away. Some people are not going to resonate with you. And it's probably more a reflection on where they're at as
Hmm.
compared to where you're at and where you're going. Because they're thinking,
Yeah.
oh, Coach Dan, you're leaving the tribe. What's going on? Don't you like us anymore?
Yeah.
Are we no longer good enough for you, Dan?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I got that a lot. You think you're better than me. And
No, I'm just being
yeah,
myself.
I'm, well, some people would say that. And I would say, I do. And if you don't think that gets in the way of my relationships, you're crazy.
Yeah, yeah,
But that's the truth.
yeah.
Let me talk about sales for a second, because we're speaking kind of esoterically. I was working with a client and she said, I was walking into this meeting and I got really nervous. And I said, what were you nervous about? She goes, well, just the sale. I go, no, no, tell me, what were you nervous about? She goes, I was nervous. I was going to trip over my words and I was going to show up like sounding really stupid.
Mm,
She said, what could I have done so I didn't feel that way? I said,
yeah,
that's so easy. She goes, really? I go, yeah, it's so easy. She goes, well, what do I do? I say, you walk in and you say to them, look, walking in here, I was really nervous about tripping over my words and saying something stupid to you.
yeah,
And she goes, I can't say that to the prospect. I said, that's exactly what you say to them. And I say, here's what you say next. The reason I'm telling you this is because I want you to know that the things that I have to share with you are coming from who I am. Like,
mm,
we're going to play a game called the truth. So I'm being truthful with you. So I'm going to ask you to be truthful with me because I know that right now I'm the enemy, right?
yeah,
I'm the person that wants to talk you into buying something, and I might be full of shit. So let's get honest. I got honest with you. You got honest with me. What are you worried about in terms
yeah.
of working with me? And she said, that's amazing. I said, no, it's just honest. It's just
And
authentic.
it's logical.
Yeah. Here's the thing, Darren, and you listening, we want to protect ourselves.
Yeah,
I don't want to feel embarrassed. I don't want to let somebody know that I'm nervous. Right. Well, then they won't buy from me. No, they're not going to buy from you if you're fake.
Mm,
They're going to buy from you if they feel like you're on their side,
mm,
like there's somebody that you can relate to. People buy from the people that they like and trust. They buy experiences. They don't buy things. You give
yeah,
them an experience that they like, that is unusual, that's fun, that's interesting. They're going to lean into you, not away
yeah,
from you.
yeah.
Speaking about victimhood, I was working with some real estate agents, and they were saying, well, we're having a problem because the market's really hard right now. I said, are any real estate agents anywhere making money? And they go, well, yeah. I said, okay, great. So we know it's not the circumstances. We know it's you. But like, no, it's you. Right.
And
And
that's
that's it.
and the thing is, a lot of people don't want to look at the mirror because
No,
they're afraid of what they're going to
people
see.
want to, right. We want to smash the mirror rather than look into it.
Yeah.
A long time ago, a good friend said, Dan, people who don't want to look at themselves don't want to talk to you.
Mm,
And I share that because that should be you, Darren. That should be you who are listening right now. Be the person that people want to smash the mirror rather than look into it.
mm.
Because those people you send away. People who want to grow and become greater versions of themselves will look in that mirror and go, wow, thank you. Like yeah,
Yeah.
go
And
ahead.
that's when you think that's when you look at what coaching is, that's exactly I guess, the premise behind coaching. If
Mm,
you hold up a mirror to somebody and they love the reflection, right, you're potentially going to be stroking the ego, or maybe
yeah.
even further, more than that, reconfirming maybe the story they've told themselves about themselves for so many years, but it may not necessarily be serving them because underneath they're not satisfied because they know they've got capabilities to do more. So my
Mm,
role as a
very well said.
salesperson,
Yeah.
my role as a coach is to actually show them that, but also point out that perhaps it's not as good as perhaps they tell themselves it is.
Yeah. When I'm working with a prospect, I say to him, here's something you'll never hear me say on a coaching call. Tell me what you would like to be coached on today. Right? Now, 90% of coaches say that. And they say that because one, they have no idea what to do, right? They're hoping the client comes up with something for them, right? And
Well, that's because the
and
coaching
two,
school has told them to say that.
I fucking hate coaching schools. Burn them all down. And they're afraid, right? They're afraid of getting it wrong. Now, the reason I never do that, it would be like this. Imagine getting on an airplane and you
Mm,
get on the plane, the pilot comes into the cabin and goes, look, I want you guys to tell me how you'd like me to fly the plane. I just want to make sure I fly in the way that makes you happy. Right? Wouldn't you get off of that airplane? Like, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Like, don't
it'd be
fly
a
the way that
rush.
I want you to, right? Fly in the way where the plane doesn't fall out of the sky.
That's it. You're the expert, so fly it.
Yeah, right. So I am the expert, right? I am constantly diagnosing my clients about where they're struggling, and I'm pointing them in the direction that they
Mm,
don't want to go. If
yeah,
I ask them what they want to be coached on, they're going to pick the easy thing.
that's it.
Right?
That's
This
it.
woman, like the client, tell me what to say or tell me how to think, so I don't feel embarrassed when I walk into the coaching or into the sales conference.
Yeah,
No, say the thing that will embarrass you.
yeah.
It opens up authentic conversations, and in that, right. And I'm getting a little nervous right now because I'm thinking I haven't really provided anything of tangible value. So if you're okay with it, let me provide one thing of tangible value so I can get that off my mind. It's probably been valuable in a bunch of different ways, but let me give you something, you the listener, that you can use right now or tomorrow. The thing I hear a lot is, how do I overcome objections? Tell me what to say when somebody objects. Should I have a list of things that, like, no, it's stupid. Don't do that.
Mm,
There's 4 words to use when someone makes an objection.
yeah,
4 simple words. These are the 4 words I use all the time, and they work every time. And I have a lot more of these kinds of words. They're authentic responses. But but my favorite is, hey, I get it. Hey, I get it.
yeah,
All right. So when somebody says to me, wow, you're really expensive, and I hear that a lot because I'm really expensive, Darren. I'm an expensive coach. When someone says, look, I would want to coach with you. I just can't afford it.
yeah.
Right. And so they're right. What they're trying to say is, if you cut me a deal, right? If you make it easier on me, so I learn less, I'm good with that. But I'm not. So what I say to them is, they say, I just can't afford it. Like, I get it. Like, I know that feeling. I know that feeling of wanting something so bad, and saying, I can't have it.
Yeah.
I can't have it. And then I start to feel like I'm kind of a loser because if other people can afford it, but I can't, what's wrong with me? Clearly, I mean, somebody's coaching with Coach Dan, right? I mean, his name is Coach Dan, unless he's a complete fraud. Um, so somebody can afford it. I can't. That means that I'm the loser, right? I'm the deficient person. But right, it's a bad feeling.
Mm.
I felt that way when I went to go buy my Tesla. Rosalind, the love of my life, and I, we wanted to go on cross country trips. We both hate driving, and we need a big car, right? So there's this thing available now. It drives itself. It's big. It has a low carbon footprint. It's perfect. It's
Yeah.
everything that we want, and it's available now at this time in human history. It's never been like how perfect. Yes, that's what I want. It's
Yeah.
$114,000. I don't have a
US.
hundred. Yeah, I don't
Which
have one
is
hundred fourteen thousand
double in
dollars.
Australia.
It's
Not quite,
it's
but
crazy how expensive it is. Now, I was really tempted to say I can't afford it.
yeah.
But the thing is, this is what I want. This is the price of what I want.
Yeah.
They're not going to negotiate with me. That's not what they do. This is the price. That's it. Right? They're not going to cut the price because I don't want to feel uncomfortable.
Mm.
Now, fortunately, there are these institutions that fund dreams. It's a
Mhm.
beautiful thing. They're called banks. A bank will fund your dream. A bank will allow you to have what you want instantly. Now you got
Yes.
to pay them for it. That makes sense, right? But here's the thing, and this is what I was saying to this person. The reason I didn't want to get a loan, I wasn't afraid of losing the money. What I was afraid of was I wasn't going to be able to make those payments and someone was going to take my car. And I would have to stand there and watch someone drive my car away.
Mm.
And oh, that feeling, I didn't want that feeling. And I said to this person I was talking to, like, that's the feeling that you're having right now. What if you start coaching with me?
Yeah.
And you're paying me monthly and you don't make the money back and you don't make anything and you have to stop coaching. You're
Yeah.
going to feel bad that I took advantage of you. You're going to feel bad that the coaching works for other people, not you. That's what you're struggling with, isn't it?
Mm.
Now, by that time, my prospect is crying
Yeah.
because it started with, hey, I get it. I've been
Mm.
right there. I've had that same feeling. I've had to take a risk that I didn't want to take. I wanted the risk to be easier, but
Yeah.
that's not how it works. So I'm talking mostly about me, not about them. I'm not talking about their pain points. I'm not talking about why they like, oh, well, if you want to make money, you have to invest in yourself. I don't do any of that.
Yeah.
I talk about that I understand the struggle that they're having. And that is the essence of no douchebag selling.
Mm.
You can't be a douchebag if you're sharing your heart with someone.
Yeah, and it has to be legitimate and authentic. So it's being it's not being sympathetic to them, but it's being empathetic in terms of what their
Yeah.
position is, but also at the same time thinking, well, if I accept the limitations that they are placing upon themselves, because that they
Yes.
have been living in a zone or a comfort zone that's called comfort zone for a very reason. They're
Hmm.
just afraid of what's on the other side of the comfort zone. And
Yeah.
they may not necessarily be scared of what may not happen. They might be scared of the fact that if I do start coaching with Coach Dan, I might actually achieve everything I've ever wanted to achieve. That might scare the living bejesus out of them.
It does. Imagine right now as you're getting ready for bed and you take your shirt off and there's a Superman outfit underneath your clothes. And it's not just like a costume that you put on. You discovered that you're actually Superman.
Mm.
And you're like, wow, this is really cool. I can fly. I can, have X-ray vision. I've always wanted to, see naked women. This is great. And so, but then you start to think, holy crap, people are going to really expect a lot of me. Right? If I start flying around, they're going to be like, "Hey, Super Darren, would you come and you know, help me do this big thing I got it? Like, hey, I want a swimming pool. I don't want to, to pay someone. Would you just like use your laser vision to cut out a swimming pool for me? Would you save me from this? Would you do this? People are going to be all over you,
Yeah.
and that's what fear of success is really about, that people are going to expect more of me that I want to give, and I'm going to have to start saying no, and I'm going to have to break rapport.
Mm.
You're right. People are not afraid of just the money or wasting money. What they're afraid of is this new person that they're going to be that they don't know.
Yeah.
I did,
And
I did a, no, please go ahead. Go
oh,
ahead.
I was
Please.
just going to extend that and say, and in that process, are they still going to be accepted?
Yes, that's what happens. You know,
Yeah.
when Richard Branson said, "Yeah, I think I'm going to build a rocket ship and go into outer space," that sounds like something I'd like to do. You know, when he did that and he employed hundreds of people, living wages, which allowed, families to prosper and kids to go to college and all these great things. What happened? People came down. Oh, that's wrong. He should have taken that money and, built schools or fed the homeless or something. Like, it's first of all, it's his freaking money. He can do
That's
what he
it.
wants with it, right? Imagine somebody, if you're one of those people, imagine someone coming into your house and going, "We'll sell that TV and give the money to the poor," right? So that's the fear. I'm going to be judged. I'm going to be this other person. I
Mm,
don't know what that person is. What about my good friends? And we all talk about how we're struggling financially. What happens to that relationship if I'm suddenly successful like Richard Branson?
mm,
It's right. It's a lot. There's a lot that goes into being successful.
yeah.
Everybody wants it. Everybody wants to get on the train of success, but very few people are willing to buy that ticket.
And therefore do the things that are required on the journey.
Yes. Now, don't do what I did. Don't lose $100,000, hire a pathological liar to put, like, just make a choice. And I have a really easy way to start making that choice.
What's the easy way?
So while I was lost and destitute and all that, I would take myself to lunch every Friday because I wanted to do one normal thing. Like while I was suffering through this clinical depression and all this crap, I just want to do one normal thing. So I would go to a different restaurant every Friday. And one day the server came up to me and she said, "Would after lunch, would you like dessert?" And I was about to say, "I can't afford it." But instead I said this. I said, "Yes, I would." Now I'm going to make a very unusual ask, and I want you to know it's okay if the answer is no.
Yeah.
But I want a yes, but it's fine if the answer is no. And she went, and I remember she went, "Okay." Because I was sure that she thought I was going to ask her out on a date, right? Little did she know I had no money to take her out on a date. It would have been the worst date of her life, right? So I said, "I would like the apple pie and I would like the restaurant to pay for it." And she said, "Wait, what?" I said, "I would like the apple pie and I would like the restaurant to pay for it." She says, "You want the apple pie for free?" I said, "Well, I would like the restaurant to pay for my dessert." And she said, "Why?" And I said, "Look, I understand it's a very unusual ask and I'm fine with it." The point being, Darren, is that without realizing it, I was practicing becoming an expert in sales.
Mm,
Because what I was doing is I was making an unusual request, a bold request. And instead of letting the prospect drive me around their logic, I kept them in a decision.
yeah.
It's a simple question, yes or no.
Yes.
And it breaks rapport. It's unusual. You got to be a weirdo. But I have every one of my clients, actually, before I allow someone to be a client, I say, "You have to do this challenge. And if you can do it, then we can talk about you being a client." And it's not just like a little game I do to make, I'll take, the takeaway. Like, I got to know that someone can do this kind of stuff because that's the kind of coaching that I do. And I demand that my clients get value from my coaching. So if you who are listening, if you would like the free dessert challenge, if you have the courage to do this kind of thing, you can download this process that I made. Text the word dessert, Dessert. And remember, it has two S's because we always want seconds. Dessert, Dessert, to this number. It's the American number. So it's 1-213-409-8366. 1-213-409-8366 and text the word dessert and Dessert. And you will get this. And this is a great challenge to bring yourself into a state of discomfort and stay in that discomfort and see it through to a yes or a no.
Mm,
And this is very important. the objective of the free dessert challenge is not to get a free dessert. The objective is to get a yes or a no.
That's it.
And this is in the instructions. But if the server was to say, well, we can't do that, that's not a no.
No.
You have to say to them, so just to be clear, are you saying that that's a no? And they might say, well, we just don't give, desserts away. I totally understand that. But just to be clear, just so I understand, would you just say yes or no?
Yeah.
Right. That is it. That's If you can do that, then you can handle any sales conversation in the world.
Mhm.
You're not being a jerk. You're not being pushy.
Yeah.
You're simply bringing someone to choice.
And what was the end result of that example?
I
Did
got,
did you walk out
I
without
got,
dessert or you had dessert
I got an apple pie with vanilla ice cream on top of it.
and the restaurant
She
paid for
said, she said, would you like that warmed up? I said, I would love that warmed up. She said, would you like a scoop of ice cream on it? I said, I would love a scoop of ice cream on it. Right. I'm not quite sure why she did it to this day. Like it's sort of a blur. But no, I've had other times where, and I've done this a bunch of times. Rosalind, the love of my life, she says, please don't do the free dessert challenge. It's so embarrassing. Would you please not do that? We can afford desserts, please. And I'm like, okay, fine. But sometimes it's a no. Or sometimes it's a lot of excuses and it's hard to get someone to know, but
Yeah.
I get them to a yes or a no. And that's what's important.
And when you think about
Right?
it, so many salespeople out there try to avoid a no, and through the process of avoiding a no, they never ask the question that could lead to a yes.
Perfectly said, Darren. That's perfectly said. I hear so many times, when I'm working with salespeople, I just, or just my clients, I really hate rejection. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. What was the last rejection that you got? Well, I was talking to this prospect and on and on. They said, I'll get back to you. And they ghosted me. Like, okay, great. But what was the last rejection that you got? And well, that's the rejection. Like, that's not a rejection. As
Mm,
far as they're still really interested,
mm,
right? You left it at an I'll think about it. So they're still thinking about it to this moment. That's not a rejection. It's your interpretation of a
yeah,
rejection. A rejection is when someone says no. That's it.
yeah,
That's rejection.
yeah.
And
And
like you say, people run away from it.
yeah, but in order to be a great salesperson, in order to be a great business person, you have to get that. You have to understand that it's part of the journey. It's part
Completely.
of the equation, right? And if you don't ask, and one of my earlier mentors always used to say, and still does, if you don't ask, people are not going to be interested. So ask the question. Are you interested? Are you committed? Are you wanting to move forward with whatever it is that you want to solve in terms of the problem? And if the answer is yes,
Yeah.
great. We'll move forward. If the answer is no, hey, cool. Maybe now's not a right time. But if I continue to be authentic and build that relationship, and as you said, people like to do business with those who they know, they like, and they trust.
Yeah.
If now is not the right time, then at least if you've left them with a good experience and a good feeling, not about you, but about themselves, then you're more likely to get
Yeah.
another conversation down the track when they're in that buying zone.
Completely. Right. And that is why, every sale ends with a yes or a no or next interaction.
Yeah.
Right. It's fine if they want to think about it. Give
Mm.
them 24 hours. How much
Yeah.
time do you need to think about it? Like, how much thinking are they really going to do? Right. So
Zero.
great. Right. I say to people, of course you should think about it. I don't do anything without thinking about it. It took me months to buy that Tesla. It was a lot of thinking.
Mm.
So, I'll tell you what, why don't you think about it for a couple of days? Let me go ahead and book our next call and we'll just show, and if it's not a good time, just click the reschedule button with Calendly and set it a time that's good, and we'll continue this conversation.
Yeah.
But do I have your commitment that you'll have that conversation with me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So what you're saying is you will have that call. Like you won't just like just say, I changed my mind. I don't want to talk with Coach Dan. Do I have your commitment that you'll be on that call? Oh
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So it's fine if you're not on that call, if I just can continue calling you until we get in touch. Well, if I don't call you, it means I'm not interested. Okay, so now we're getting clear.
You're
Which
not
is it?
interested.
Right. Yeah. Which is it?
We-
Are you going to show up on that call, or do I need to call you, or is it a no now? Right. Right.
yes,
It has to
and
be
and
that.
that's authentic.
Yes. Right. And I'm not being pushy. Like I'm like, look, I'm just following you. Like
Yeah,
I'm just being clear. That's all that I want to be. Look, my sales cycle is up to 6 months.
yeah.
And actually what I tell people on the very first call, and by the way, you who are listening, if you want to have a call with me, I'm fine with it. I give this number out all the time. I give this option out. Very few people take me up on it because they're scared. Oh, Coach Dan is going to talk me into something I'm afraid of. Like as if I can reach through the Zoom screen, grab your wallet or your credit card and run it through my processor. Like I'm begging you, if you get on a call with me and I say something you don't like, don't even say goodbye, just quit. Right.
Yeah.
So book a call with me. It's really simple. That same number, text help, as in help me, Coach Dan, to 213-409-8366, the country code one,
Yeah.
help, HELP, 213-409-8366. Book a call with me. Here's the first thing I'm going to say to you. You will not be a client at the end of this call. You will
Mhm.
not be a client at the end of this call because I'm not going to ask you to be one. Because right now, that's not what this call is about. This call is about you learning about me learning about you, me giving you at least $10,000 worth of advice.
Mm.
And if it seems that at some point it makes sense to have another call, we'll talk about that then. But you will not be a client.
Yeah.
And Darren, the look on people's faces, this like, oh, thank God, right? I'm not going to get pitched. So that's called an upfront contract. And
Yeah.
right, here's another little piece of advice. You let someone know what the interaction is going to be like, and you let them know that that they might not be a client. It takes all the pressure off.
It does. It does. Because it's and that's the thing. It's interesting. I talk to a lot of people, even salespeople, and I ask them the question, who likes to be sold to? And very,
Yeah,
very few people like to put their hand up. But I say, well, let's change the question a little bit and say, well, who likes to do the buying? And just about every single person puts their hand up. So as
yeah,
a salesperson, if you can be authentic and create value, but also set the tone in terms of what the expectations are going to be and what the process will be, then they're
yeah,
more likely to engage in an authentic conversation, let their guards down because they know, hey, there's not going to be a pitch. Now, at some stage, you have to move into a close and say, look,
right.
if this makes sense, I'm going to share with you how we might be able to work together if I feel there's a fit.
Exactly.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
Right? And if they say, yeah, sure, when it gets to that stage, it's more likely to now be a clearer transition into maybe onboarding as a client. And that's not being a
yeah,
douchebag. That's just being a servant, right?
right. Because you know, you who are listening right now understand that they're talking to you for a reason, right? It's unlikely that you drove up with a van, grabbed them off the street, duct taped them, roofied them, and then said, hey, I want to sell you something, right? They came to you because they have a need.
Yeah,
You are doing them a disservice if
yeah,
you don't take them all the way to the decision. And I love
mm,
what you said, Darren. It was perfect. Is it okay? Like it's as simple as that.
yeah,
Is it okay if I share this with you?
yeah,
Hey, you know, I have a thought about something that you shared. Is it okay if I tell you what that thought is? Would that be okay?
mm,
Yes. I get at least 25 yeses in every sales interaction.
mm,
And it does two things for me. One, it keeps me engaged with the other person, right? It keeps that open communication. It gets them saying yes. So when it comes time to buy, they're more likely to say yes. And two, it shuts me up. I think that you can tell from this conversation, Darren, I am completely infatuated with the sound of my voice. And so it is imperative that I have a system, a process to shut me up.
yeah,
So every 45 seconds, between every 30 and 45 seconds, I'm asking a question.
mm,
Does this make sense? Can I
yeah,
keep going? Do you want me to stop? Is there something else you on your mind?
yeah,
Right.
yeah. That's brilliant.
Actually, I don't say, do you want me to stop? That's a no question. But is it okay if I keep going? Right.
Is it okay
Don't
if we
ask me.
is it okay if I share more wisdom?
Right. Yeah.
is it okay if I share another $10,000 worth of value?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Would that be okay? Like and something that you talked about earlier was stress.
Yeah.
Right? And so I would say that the number one destroyer of every great uh, sales opportunity is stress.
Mm.
Now, I've done a lot to help me reduce stress. I've tried a lot of things like meditating. I suck at meditating. It's terrible. Microdosing, gummies, CBD. Nothing worked until I found this one really cool thing. And it turned out that this cool thing I could get on my phone, which I did, which I mean, my phone was the greatest waster of time. I didn't think it would be the thing that also brought me um, more less stress,
Yeah.
more sleep, enhance my performance, enhance my focus, and it is a product called Nucalm, Nucalm. Now, I found this by accident. But what it is, it's a technology called binaural beats. So it's music. And
Mhm.
underneath the music are these waveforms, these audio waveforms that your brain attracts itself to. Now, as I started learning about this company, and when I learn something about something that's really beneficial, I just go in full. I put a cinder block on the gas pedal. I've got to know everything, right? This company, Newcom, is used by over 56 professional sports teams the world over. The U.S. Department of Defense, Special Forces, Navy SEALs, the Air Force, the FBI, people with a lot more stress than you and I, they use Newcom to de-stress and to focus. It's being used. It's been used in over 2 million surgeries instead
Wow.
of general anesthesia. And it affects the alpha theta ranges of your brain. I won't get into the technology of it, but I'll just say it works. I use this at night when I go to sleep. I have a very hard time going to sleep because my brain, right? You can probably tell. It puts me out like a light, I sleep like a baby. In the morning, if I don't get enough sleep, I use another Nucom channel because this makes me feel like I've had 8 hours of sleep. I use it before a sales meeting
Mhm.
because it enhances my focus. Tony Robbins is now involved with Newcom. He has his own channel with it, and he gets pitched by a million people. But he decided to work with Newcom. So I call up Newcom. I say, I need to talk to the CEO. Right? I don't know how I said it, but they put me through to this guy, Jim Poole, the CEO of Newcom. I said, "Hey Jim, my name is Coach Dan Gordon. I need to talk to you about your product." And he's like, "Wait, who are you? Like, why am I having this conversation?" And I just started telling him, and I said, "Look, I want to put this in the hands of more people." Then I really got his attention, right?
Yeah.
I said, "Would you give me a free week of Newcom that I can give out to people so they can experience this?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'll do that." And I said, "Great. How many of these are you willing to give me?" He goes, "I'll give you as many as you need." I'm like, "Really? This could be a million of them." It's fine. Because that's his mission too. Like we started talking, and he has a mission to heal people. I have a mission. So to get a free week of this, and now my only caution is you're going to be hooked. You're going to be hooked when you start using it. It's that good. It's pretty inexpensive. I'll let you deal with it, but you'll get the free week. Text the word calm, CALM, to that same number. I think you're getting the pattern here. Text
Yeah.
calm, CALM, to that same number. Country code 1-213-409-8366. 213-409-8366. Country code 1-213-409-8366. And text the word calm, CALM. If you've been paying attention, right? Text calm, CALM. Text help, HELP. Or text dessert, DESSERT,
Yeah.
to get these things that I've offered. And the reason I'm sharing these things, Darren, it is imperative to me that I stay in the space of giving
Yeah.
because it's easy for my ego to take over.
Mm.
Clearly, I think a lot of myself. And fortunately, I've moved myself in a space where I do help a lot of people. And I know I have to be a self-promotional person to help a lot of people, just like Dr. King and Gandhi and all these other people were. But it is imperative to me that in everything I share, there are givebacks, and these are my givebacks. So one last
Nice.
time, 1-213-409-8366, calm, help, and dessert.
Nice. Nice. Coach Dan, as we bring this to a close, there was an interesting theme that runs through this, and I just wanted to pick up on it as we close up, and that is this thing called rapport. You've made a number of references to the ability to break rapport in terms of
Yes.
being an authentic salesperson or a douchebag.
Yeah.
Interestingly, most, if not all, sales training, and I'm a sales trainer, so I also talk about the importance of, in order to get a seat at the table, you do have to get to a point where you can build rapport with a
Yeah.
client, potential client. Um, but I think also as a reputable salesperson, if you're going to be serving a client, sometimes you're going to have conversations that might be difficult for the person to hear, but you're doing them the right thing. So can you just touch on your philosophy around that? Because there might be
Yeah.
people listening to this and saying, well, hang on a second. Coach Dan's saying, in order for me to be an authentic salesperson, I've got to break rapport, right? Well,
Yeah.
I tend to think it might be more of a pattern interrupt, not necessarily completely breaking rapport. But can you just give a bit of I guess, an explanation in terms of the yin
Yeah.
and yang around rapport, no rapport, as it relates to being a no douchebag salesperson?
Yeah, thank you. And I really appreciate how you couch that, Darren, because you're 100% right. Building rapport is critical, right? You can't break rapport unless you have rapport. The reason I talk about breaking rapport is because people get really focused on breaking on building on building rapport. But if well, I'll just say it this way. I had a client who was she had been a nurse, and she had moved into being an entrepreneur and was selling these health products. And we were talking about nursing, and nursing is a lot of rapport, right? A big part of being a nurse is making the patient feel comfortable in a very stressful situation.
Hmm.
And I said, that's your job. But sometimes you have to go to that patient's bedside with a tube. And we all know where that tube has to go. Nobody likes the tube going there. I said, but imagine if you said to the surgeon, look, they just weren't ready for the tube. I couldn't do it. The surgeon, are you like, the person's going to die now because we can't have the operation, right? I'm really busy. We had one slot. Because you didn't put the tube where it needed to go, they can't have the surgery, and I can't save their life. You just killed them, right? Sometimes you have to show up with the tube.
Hmm.
The tube is the pattern interrupt. I've been this person for you. You know I'm a good person, right? You feel it, but I have to do something that's going to hurt in order
Hmm.
to help you.
Yeah.
That's the break of rapport.
Yeah.
The break of rapport isn't like the classic shitty used car salesperson going, well, look, when you're serious about buying a car, come back and I can help you. But until then, I can't help you. You're not serious. I'm going to work with serious people, right? That's not the kind of rapport break I'm talking.
No.
It's the love
Yeah.
of saying, I know this uncomfortable thing will help you. If there's someone, if you're someone who's had someone in your life suffering from the disease of addiction, and you've had to be in a what's that thing called where forgetting that term,
A,
a
a health one?
intervention, right? Yeah,
Oh,
and
intervention. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. If you had to be in an intervention, that's exactly it, right? You have to put someone in a space where you say, what you're doing right now isn't beneficial to you, it's hurting you.
Hmm.
And I have to tell you things. I love you. And I'm going to tell you things you are not going to like to hear, because
Yeah.
my focus isn't on making sure that you like me. It's on saving your life.
Yeah.
And if you're in a conversation with someone, a sales conversation, it means that they've come to you for help.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to put that tube where it belongs.
Hmm. And that's to serve them. And it's a great way to
Yes,
finish, because sales is the ultimate form of service. Now,
it is.
you want to be an authentic person if you create that environment where it's not so much a clinical intervention, but it isn't an intervention to say, well, right now you're not satisfied with where you're at or what you've done, and you probably realize there's some more things you could do, but maybe you just need some support Maybe you just need a little bit of a nudge, jump over the
Yeah.
threshold and jump into the new world. And I'm here to help you to do that, right? But in order for me to help you do that, there might be some conversations we're going to have that may be a little bit unpalatable, but they're designed to help you because they're coming from a position of servitude. And you mentioned um, Martin Luther King, you mentioned Mother Teresa, you mentioned Nelson Mandela. All these
Yeah.
people are there to
Yeah.
serve, but they would have difficult conversations because that's what's required.
Very difficult. They had to have very, very difficult conversations
Yeah.
with people who they had to move into their thinking.
Absolutely. So, Coach Dan, been an absolute pleasure having you on the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. For the listeners, Coach Dan dropped the number 3 times. So remember the word dessert, help, and calm to country code 1-213-409-8366. Coach Dan, if people want to connect with you outside of that number, where's the best place for them to do so?
LinkedIn, love connecting with people on LinkedIn. Just do a search for Coach Dan Gordon. If you do a search for Coach Dan Gordon, a Google search, you'll end up at my website, which is dangordonenterprise.com. No, that's not a coincidence. I named my company after me.
That's right. Funny about that.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely. So, Coach Dan, greatly appreciate being on the podcast. It's been a fabulous conversation and look forward to staying connected with you.
Thanks, brother. Be well.
Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.